You're 35,000 feet in the air, staring out at a blanket of clouds, when you notice something that makes your stomach drop. There's a hole in your window. A tiny one, right near the bottom of the glass. Your first instinct is panic. A hole? In a pressurized cabin? 6 miles above the Earth. But before you flag down a flight attendant, take a breath. That hole isn't a defect. It isn't damage. It's one of the most carefully engineered safety features on the entire aircraft. A pinprick of genius that prevents the window from exploding and keeps you breathing comfortably at cruising altitude. Today, we're looking at the surprising reason plane windows are designed with holes in them, right here on the small things. To understand the hole, you first have to understand the war happening on the other side of that glass. At cruising altitude, the air pressure outside the plane is roughly a quarter of what it is at sea level. If you were exposed to it directly, you'd lose consciousness in seconds. The cabin is pressurized to keep you alive, pumped full of air to simulate a much lower altitude. But that pressure difference creates enormous stress. The air inside the plane is constantly pushing outward, trying to escape. Every square inch of the fuselage, every window, every seam is holding back that force. Airplane windows aren't single panes of glass. They're actually 3 separate layers of stretched acrylic, stacked together with air gaps between them. The outer pane is the structural one. It's thick, strong, and designed to bear the full brunt of that pressure difference. The middle pane is a backup. If something catastrophic happens to the outer layer, the middle pane takes over and keeps the cabin sealed. The innermost layer, the one you can actually touch, is basically a plastic shield. It protects the important panes from scratches, smudges, and the idle fingers of bored passengers. Now here's where the hole comes in. It's called a breather hole or a bleed hole, and it sits in that middle pane. Its job is to make sure the outer pane does all the work. Without the hole, both the outer and middle panes would share the pressure load during flight. That sounds like a good thing, right? Redundancy? But engineers don't want the backup working during normal operations. They want it fresh, untouched, ready for an emergency. The tiny hole allows air to flow between the cabin and the gap between the middle and outer panes. This equalizes the pressure on the middle pane, essentially taking it out of the equation during normal flight. The outer pane bears the load alone. If it ever fails, the middle pane is still pristine and ready to take over. There's another benefit too. The hole also regulates how quickly pressure changes affect the window layers. Think of it like the difference between dropping a hammer on glass versus setting it down gently. Rapid pressure changes during climb, and descent could stress the panes if they happened all at once. The breather hole slows that process down, letting pressure equalize gradually instead of slamming into the structure. And if you've ever wondered why your window doesn't fog up completely at altitude, even when the outside temperature drops to 70 degrees below zero, the hole helps with that too. It lets moisture escape from between the panes, keeping your view clear. It's a minor perk compared to the safety function, but passengers who paid extra for a window seat probably appreciate it. The engineering behind airplane windows wasn't always this refined. In the early 1950s, the de Havilland Comet became the world's first commercial jet airliner. It was revolutionary, faster, smoother, and more glamorous than anything that came before. But within 2 years, multiple comets broke apart in mid-flight, killing everyone on board. Investigators eventually discovered that the pressurized cabin was failing due to metal fatigue. Every time the plane climbed and descended, the fuselage expanded and contracted slightly. Stress concentrated around the corners of the windows, which at the time were more squared off. Tiny cracks formed, spread, and eventually the structure gave way explosively. The comet disasters changed aviation forever. Engineers learned that pressurized cabins needed to be treated with far more respect. Window shapes were rounded to distribute stress more evenly. Materials were tested more rigorously. And every tiny detail of window construction, including that little breather hole, became the subject of intense scrutiny. The hole you see today is a direct descendant of the lessons learned from those tragedies. So the next time you notice that tiny puncture near the bottom of your airplane window, don't panic. Smile. You're looking at decades of engineering evolution packed into a pinhole. A feature designed to protect the backup, regulate pressure changes, clear your view, and ultimately keep you safe at the edge of space. I hope you enjoyed this slice of aviation engineering. If you did, please hit that like button and subscribe to The Small Things for more stories about the world hiding in plain sight. Thanks for watching.